So as you can, if you have viewed our earlier streams or earlier videos, we have created our first we followed the quick start guide and did the Sitecore first create our Sitecore disconnected mode app. This video we are going to try out create a first component with Sitecore JSS, and then we will try to deploy it into Sitecore in connected mode and see how it is this can be done. Okay, so to give you a first idea, I am in my first step, and I'm going to will just try to start it and see how it looks in the default. So so yeah, this is the default app that we get from Sitecore when we created our first disconnected mode app with Sitecore JSS. Okay. So while it is running, I'm going to open another command window, and I go into my app folder. As you can see, it is inside my app folder. I'm going to we are going to create our first component, so we can add something like we'll create what we should create. Okay, let's see. We'll create a simple component initially with just a text field. Later we will extend it. Okay, so first I will name it. So there is a guide also in the jssitecore.com. They have provided good documentation here. We can there's two ways we can do it. We can either create it using scaffold that they have provided. We can do it also manual way, but since this is easy, we initially first do it using this command. Later we will see how it is be done manually also. Okay, so let's write. Let's try is scaffold called. I will name it. We'll name it as usual. My first component. Okay, enter. And as you can see, it has created two files, a JS file as to define the component and also implement the UI. React component file is created here. Okay, we will go through it now. So if I open the app, here I have opened the app in Visual Code, and if you go into Sitecore definitions, components, you should see. Okay, let's load. Okay, here is our first. This is the file, one of the files that was created. This file is actually used where you can define your icons for the component, and also what are the fields that is used for the data source, and also you can define the restricted placeholder like that. This is the mainly the how you define the content, or how you data part. Okay, and then there is another file which is created in src component, src folder. Here src components, and you can see there is a folder with my first component and an index.js file created. This is, you can say, this is actually a React component, where you do the how this component look like. Okay, so in Sitecore terms, this can be, this is MVC or terms, this is a VOC HTML file. So so let's now the final sum. We initially we will try to add this to our let's see this page. Okay, we'll try to add it into this page. So what we should do is we should go into the root and for example this it defines the data items or the pages for the where you define and this is it by default this is how it is done. So what we should do is okay what we are going to do is we will comment out the oh I just we will first define the component, our component name my first, that is my first, what did we create, what is the my first component, name of the component. Okay, and as you can see this is by default a placeholder that comes with the default app, and we are adding this component into this JSS main placeholder. Okay, and what are the fields we had? If you want to check, we have headings field, a single line field. So what we can do is we can define the fields. Okay, heading, and it is a single line field. So title or something. Okay, so I am going to remove the default one, so just keep it this file. Okay, and since we have added it, I just want to copy the default tab. Okay, that's fine. And as you can see, since we are still running the JSS app, so it automatically fetches the changes and display it for you. Okay, so this is actually the title and this is the component name. Okay, so now what we are going to do is let's go into our src components and my first component or the other React component and try to do some design changes. Okay, I'm going to say I'm going to write some no, I will just as you can see it gets reflected automatically. Okay, now what we going to do is we will add say that in the first component we only had a header field, we will add a description field also. So for that you will again have to go into your definition, and we'll go through it this one now. So what here you can define is you can give a name for your component. Okay, and also you can give a display name also for that one. So say that you don't know any of these properties or how you initially learn it, actually they have provided a style guide where in your first application you can either view it in your default application. Here you can see style guide, here you can see and it defines this by default. These all the components have been they have create as an example. So for example, single line, if you want to get, and they mention where is the implementation and where is the item or the definition of that component. So the definition of component is definitions component, and it says style guide text. So if you want to know how the text field anything is working, what you should do is you will come here. Where can you find that relevant file? Yeah, this one. As you can see, it defines how you should you can use the text field, and also you can have the React component also in the related folders. Okay, and so that is how you, if you want to learn it, you should learn. And then here you can see, so we are going to now define our one of our fields. So what you should do is file our first component. Here we are going to add another field. We name the field content, and type of the field field types, and rich text. Okay, so here you will see the type of the fields. Okay, so you can also view what are the types, or and these things actually define under, yeah, we find it for you here. Here I can see here. Okay, so in the node module, Sitecore JSS, we imported the node module for Sitecore JSS, and here you should be able to see, if you want to, these are just how you, if since we are new to this JSS, how we see these, what are the field types. So if you select field types, this TS file, you can see these are the defined field types. Okay, single line, multi-line, rich text, like that. Okay, image, by default these field types are supported. Okay, so, and let's go back to component definition. So okay, we'll initially add it here and save it. Okay, we add another field, and if you go into here, you will see nothing. Why is it? Because we only define the field or the component, but we didn't define how it should be visible. So that is actually in the src assets, or the not component file. Here you will have to define how it should be visible. Text, it is same as text field, so it is a kind of text field restrict, so we can use the text here. Fields content. Okay, so how you learn these components and this? For example, that can be as I mentioned earlier in the style guide. This is that related component that we earlier checked, so it explains everything what should be and what are the usage of the properties. For example, editable, and you can give a class, or you can add enclosed HTML component like section or div, like that, or you can just display them as raw values without doing any editing. Okay, so as you can see, there is for all the field types you have this style guides defined. Okay. So what are the, so here more properties we can see is editable, and also okay. So for now we will not go into more detail. So we have add the content and save it. Okay. Do you see any changes? When you refresh, we will not see. Why is that? We define, so what is it now? Earlier what we did was we define how the component, the data of the component, how the Sitecore fields and the data component should be visible, and here we define how the apps look like, or how the HTML finally generated. This is the React app, and but we didn't add it to this URL or this page item or this route in JSS or the front end terms. So for that we will have to, let's go into the routes data. This is the route EL, and we will have to add content. Okay, since this is a rich text field. Okay, fine. Okay, and just save it. Okay, as you can see here, you will see that one. Okay, but why is it so that means we have not done styling. So what we should go is, we'll go into our component, or the first component, this one, our first component file, maybe add er tag. So for now, maybe there is a better ways to styling it. For now I add, and you can see it is now like that. Okay, so that is how the content. And one thing to mention, since this is a rich text field, you can directly type a lot of content and HTML. So in the initial default one, you will see this here like this. You have a lot of content, so they are mentioning if you want to have a multi-line, you will have to use this, and then it will automatically pick up the content. Okay, so what we should do is this one. Okay, description goes here. We'll do h2 and then we'll try out href. Okay, like that. We will save it, and as you can, okay, and here what you see is, you will see the content in the HTML format. So we will correct that one also. So what we should do is, so this is the component. Okay, in this component, so this is how we should learn it. So in these style guides, as I mentioned, there is a rich text field guide. Okay, we go into there, okay, and see. Okay, so what is the problem? Earlier I have used the text component to display, so it is not rendering anything as HTML, it is just rendering as default text. So for that we will have to use rich text. Okay, so I'm going to use, copy it and come it here. As you can see, rich text, but it will not work because you'll have to import that. So what, go here, like that. Okay, let's see here. As you can see, so the h2 tag and everything is visible in that HTML. Okay, so that is how we will discuss more into how this style guide and everything should can be, and the routes and everything in more detail in future videos. For now, we will, since we have created our component, we will try to push it to Sitecore and see how it is looks there. So as information, we did another video to cover how the JSS server setup is done, and also we connected deploy our this application to configure this application and deploy it to Sitecore. So we just now initially just have to push the updates again, but if you want to learn how the JSS setup and move from disconnected mode and deploy it to Sitecore into the making as connected mode, you will have to follow those videos. So there is a good documentation also in the site. Okay. Now we are going to do is we are going to deploy a deploy app. Okay, what's include content? Okay, we are saying to deploy the app but include also the content. Okay, let's see. If you want to deploy only the files, you should type JSS deploy files. This production, creating the build. Okay, deployment successful. Now if you go into Sitecore, and you will see my first component data source item is created, okay, with our content. Okay, and if you go into template section and projects, my first tab, you will see definition for that my data source item of the my first component. Okay, as you can see, heading and rich text content component. And if you go into home item and presentation details, the final layout, you will see my first component is added because we added that into the route route item also. And then finally we will try to open it in the experience editor. Okay, as you can see, you can edit this. Okay, so that's if you don't want to edit this thing, this way also, let's try that also to see what other properties look like. Say that you don't want to allow editing for the text field, editable false. Okay, just like that, and I just need to deploy files. Okay, let's go into here, try to load it in experience editor again. Okay, as you can see, it only allows the content field and you cannot edit the title field. Okay, so it is since we set this property editable false. Okay, so that's that's it for this video. In future videos we will discuss more into how the routes and how we another video will discuss how style guides can be used to learning purposes, and also custom routes and those more details on those. Okay, and thank you for listening. Bye for now.